Marvel is no longer effectively using the oversized hardcover format where DC is. Let's discuss.
It's morphin' time!
Hello, this is Soundout here, and on today's video I wanted to discuss Marvel oversized hardcovers versus DC Deluxe editions, because this is a format that Marvel is no longer using effectively, whereas DC continues to use it very effectively. And I wanted to discuss that, because when we talk about omnibuses a lot, but I think the Deluxe Edition hardcover is an important thing to still have, and Marvel has all but abandoned it, whereas DC has been really embracing it, especially lately. So we're going to go through some of this. I'm going to use a lot of examples of books I own and also books I don't, not because I don't want to own them at some point, or maybe I want to have them in a different format. We will discuss. I have a couple examples in my head. But we need to discuss kind of the differences in how each company approaches the oversized hardcover. Because like I said, Marvel basically doesn't make them anymore. So let's get into it. If you enjoy this video and this discussion, be sure to hit the like button, hit subscribe and the notification bell. Hit the hype button if it's available to you. And let's get to it. I'm going to talk about Marvel first and how they used to do things versus what they're doing now. So Marvel used to publish Deluxe Edition hardcovers all the time, but they don't anymore. And what I mean by this is that this is the most recent oversized hardcover from Marvel that's not branded in Omnibus. This is the Blood Hunt Red Band edition. This is the more violent version of the core Blood Hunt miniseries. And this was done, I believe, because the Blood Hunt Omnibus is going to contain the more censored version, and so this was released separately. Because that just kind of makes some sense to me, that the Blood Hunt Omnibus would not contain the same miniseries twice when they have a ton of tie-ins to include. So that's kind of like the last time Marvel really did an oversized hardcover. Otherwise, House of X, Powers of X, and X of Swords have been reprinted. This one in 2025, this one in 2027. These are the original printings. But they're reprinting these because they decided that the Krakoa era anthology omnibuses would skip over both events. So they have reprinted those. Outside of this, Marvel's doing nothing with the oversized hardcover format. It is kind of insane to me considering there's a lot of options available. So let's talk about how Marvel used to use the oversized format. So for the longest time, Marvel used to do these oversized hardcovers, which were essentially volumes of a series that were basically 2 trade paperbacks put together into a hardcover. So you would see the series come out in singles, of course, then you'd see 2 trades, then you'd see the hardcover. And so for collectors that wanted things in oversized, this is a great way to do it because you could just get it in nice, easily readable chunks. And this was the case for a long time, until a certain point where Marvel decided, you know what, let's just stop doing these and let's focus on omnibuses only. And this did upset Daredevil fans because the Chip Zdarsky run was being released in this format, and then they didn't finish it in this format, and the second omnibus actually starts by double dipping with the last of the oversized hardcovers. So it's kind of wasn't super planned out, but then there was other series like Jason Aaron's Avengers where the last chunk was an omnibus, but the rest of it was these type hardcovers. But Marvel used to do this all the time, and it was great. Why did Marvel stop? Well, 2 reasons. One, they're pretty quick to put an omnibus out now. Like Jed MacKay Moon Knight, for example, that thing came out real quick. But the other reason is because most Marvel comics don't run long enough to justify a format like this. Because of the way Marvel has shifted their internal policies in terms of first issue physical pre-order numbers are how a series' length is determined, most Marvel comics now don't make it past 10 issues. And so because of that, why would you have a hardcover that's designed to hold, 12 to 15 issues if your series is only going to get 10? And so that's an issue with the Marvel system. But even without that, if we ignore that factor, if we put that aside because, obviously there's the whole single issue comic market thing that doesn't seem to be changing, what can Marvel Collected Editions department be doing with the deluxe format? How about it supplement the omnibus line? The Death of Daredevil by Jed MacKay, which is a mini-series that takes place between the Charles Soule and Chip Zdarsky runs of Daredevil, is an important story, I think, for a lot of reasons. While it's not a major Daredevil chapter because it was a 5-issue miniseries, it doesn't exist in the omnibuses. It's not in the Charles Soule omnibus. It's not in the Chip Zdarsky omnibus. It was written by Jed MacKay, why can't we get a deluxe hardcover with this, maybe some of the other miniseries like Daredevil and Echo, as like a supplementary volume to the omnibuses, a gap filler that would go in between volumes? Wouldn't that be great? Circle back on this with DC later, but that's something that I'm surprised that Marvel isn't doing. Not everything needs to be an omnibus, because there's not enough omnibus material for side material for Daredevil in that era, but one deluxe hardcover, that could do the trick. And much like the Red Band edition of Blood Hunt, they used to do deluxe hardcovers for events. Like, for example, the Infinity Wars by Jerry Duggan Complete Collection isn't a omnibus of every single tie-in to the Infinity Wars event. It is simply the stuff that Jerry Duggan wrote. So if you wanted the core story of Infinity Wars, including Countdown and the actual main series and all that, the important stuff is included here. And this was made as like a supplementary volume to the Guardians of the Galaxy by Jerry Duggan. So the thing is, I like stuff like this, but we don't get this. You get standard trade paperback or full omnibus with all tie-ins. And so for me, for example, I would not buy a One World Under Doom omnibus, but I would have bought a, oversized hardcover with the One World Under Doom series and the tie-ins that were written by Ryan North, right? That would be a supplementary thing to the Ryan North Fantastic Four run. Much like I bought this as a supplementary book to the Guardians of the Galaxy Jerry Duggan run. So that's something that I'm also kind of surprised Marvel's doing, but from a business sense, I do get it, because you look at a book like this and you go, yeah, how many people are going to buy here's all the tie-ins included. If you only have given them one option for an oversized version of an event that ties into a run they like, they might just buy that. And then also there's the way that Marvel did it with Daredevil, which I kind of like, which was that the main Devil's Reign series plus the tie-ins that were written by Chip Zdarsky were in the Chip Zdarsky Daredevil omnibuses, so you didn't have to get the Devil's Reign omnibus. I think options are good. There's always going to be the people that will buy everything, and then there's some people that just want a core story. And so that's also a good way to put it out in oversized hardcover. Though I will point out something really funny about this book in particular not being branded an omnibus. That is, I have a couple Marvel omnibuses that are shorter than it, right? She-Hulk by Peter David, Godzilla, Muppets. Those are all shorter in page count than this Infinity Wars. And so it not being an omnibus is kind of funny. But at the time, it had a $50 cover price as opposed to She-Hulk's $75. So there may be a reason towards the pricing, but it does kind of bring up the question of like, okay, well, if this is supplementing an omnibus, why is the Marvel logo so big? Yeah, I'm going to do a weird spine diversion here. See, because then there's books like Star Wars Kanan, which was not a long series. It was only 12 issues. And because of that, it made sense to put it out in an oversized hardcover and not an omnibus. But internally, they branded it an omnibus because, yeah, that's the entirety of the Kanan series. What else would be included? And you can notice on the spine here, and this may be just due to the size of the Star Wars logo, but the actual Marvel logo is the same height as the Marvel Omnibus logo. So while it's not branded a Marvel Omnibus, when you put it with your other Star Wars omnibuses, it's an oversized hardcover that fits in and doesn't look out of place. At least, keeps the red part at the top of the spine, which I appreciate. Something just a little detail, but something nice to see. Like I look at the Krakoa omnibuses with the oversized hardcovers for the events, and they had the big Marvel logo, and it just doesn't look as right. I kind of wish more was like this. That's my weird spine diversion for the day. I won't bring up another thing again about spines. We got to talk about contents of books, and specifically, let's go look at what DC's done with the Deluxe Edition. All right, so we're going to do DC Deluxe Edition roundup of what types of books they put out in this format. All right, first of all, a standalone miniseries like Superman Unchained. This was Scott Snyder, Jim Lee. This is a pretty big deal. New 52 era. It was, I always remember this for having just gorgeous artwork. So, of course, kind of makes sense to put it out as a deluxe edition. There's no Superman New 52 Omnibus. Hopefully that would be included there. But if you only just wanted Unchained, there you go. Final Crisis Legion of Three Worlds. This is a tie into Final Crisis. But this book is got gorgeous George Perez art, and if you wanted to have this for your Legion collection, since it's a pretty important Legion of Superheroes story, with the Legion crossing over at 3 time periods, I'm glad they released this separately, because yes, it would be, I think there is a Final Crisis omnibus, and if there isn't, I'm sure there will be at some point, where all the tie-ins are included, and this is a Final Crisis tie-in, but it's also nice to get it on its own if you're just a Legion collector that doesn't need Final Crisis. Guess what? I wouldn't buy a Final Crisis Omnibus, but I did buy this. DC made an extra sale. Standalone miniseries as well. DC The New Frontier, the Deluxe Edition, which I ultimately chose over the Absolute Edition because, at least from what I could find online, the Absolute Edition did not include the special one-shot that was made around the time of the Justice League New Frontier animated movie. But this has all the bonus material in it, and it's in a nice hardcover, and it's a standalone universe story. It's a complete volume. There's no reason to call it an omnibus. It's not thick enough. The thinnest DC Omni I have is this Catwoman New 52 omnibus, and as you can see, that's still significantly longer than this New Frontier book, so perfect deluxe edition. Far Sector, same story here, standalone miniseries. This contains all the extra bonus stories and behind-the-scenes stuff. Love this comic. Absolutely gorgeous artwork that you want to have in an oversized edition. Would totally buy it for like a fourth time in Absolute if they made it. But that also works as a standalone book. Batman Spawn. Hey, guess what? All the Batman Spawn crossovers in one book so that fans of either character can pick it up nice and easy. And as a publisher, they don't have to worry about it being included in another collection where it would get lost in licensing. There you go. Nice and easy. All right, how about some creator-focused stuff that's too short for an omnibus? Alan Moore wrote 3 Superman stories. Here's all 3 of them, but they're still in the oversized format, so that way it fits into your collection if you just want those Alan Moore stories. Hopefully, eventually, we get collections that include all the Superman and Action Comics issues and all that. That would be great, but this is just everything Alan Moore did for Superman in one volume, so you're set. Same story for Batman Ego and Other Tales by Darwin Cook. This is all the Darwin Cook Batman stuff, basically, in one volume. It even has Selina's Big Score, which is also in the Catwoman of East End omnibus. But this is so you can have all the Batman and related stories that Darwin Cook did. Boom, easy. How about an anniversary anthology, 80 Years of Superman in Deluxe, which has different stories from different eras of Superman's history. You get kind of a nice sampler, but it works as a nice, like, here's a representation of the anniversary. That's a great format as well. And, of course, they did it for Batman 2, so you got that going on. All right, Action Comics and Detective Comics getting 1,000 issues is an amazing milestone, and they put out these really cool one-shots at the time where they contain multiple stories from multiple creators about multiple eras. While there's one story that would be kind of an epilogue to the previous run and a story that would lead into the next run for Superman, those 2 stories will definitely make it to the respective omnibuses. But will the rest of it? Hard to say unless they have managed to put those in with, creator-focused omnis. So it's good to have a nice standalone edition of that volume. Same thing for Detective Comics 1000. I even think that the Detective Comics 1000 core stories that tie into the current run that was at the time, I believe is in the omnibus, and then this is going to get you all the other stories again in one place. And it also makes a nice companion to the Action 1000. So you've got those together, and they pair well with those. So you've kind of created your own little sub-collection of anniversary stuff. Hey, how about a famous storyline like Under the Red Hood? It was kind of split up. There was a break in issues, and there's also some additional material. Here's a deluxe edition that's got the entire Under the Red Hood story, plus Red Hood The Lost Days, as well as stuff from previous Batman issues where the character Jason Todd appeared. So yeah, that makes perfect sense. If you're somebody that wants just the Red Hood stories in your collection, or just Jason Todd, or you just want key Batman stories, well, instead of having to have a whole omnibus of that era just to get that story, you can have it standalone. And then there's a matching one for Death in the Family, which was the story where Jason Todd died, that has a matching cover and everything. Hey, look at that. You got another sub-collection off of a storyline excerpt. Robin, Son of Batman, one of my favorite Damian Wayne Robin comics. Patrick Gleason did it. Here's the thing. There's not enough of this series to put into an omnibus. It only lasted 13 issues and had a crossover with Superman, so it's in a deluxe edition instead, which is nice because that means it's a lower price point for a thinner book. There's no reason to call it an omnibus, but it is a complete collection of that character. And, I don't really know how else you could collect it because it was so short. And then one of the most effective things is you have a similar to Under the Red Hood, Legion of Superheroes, The Great Darkness Saga. This contains the entire Great Darkness Saga storyline from Legion of Superheroes, and that's a pretty iconic story in and of itself. And then as a pairing to that, the Legion of Superheroes, The Cursed Deluxe Edition, which is almost as thick as that Catwoman book. It's like really, really close. This is everything that led from after the Great Darkness Saga to the beginning of the next era of Legion. So that means if we get omnibuses of this era of Legion, which I hope we do, they could lead up to the Great Darkness Saga, because the curse exists, and then they could start the next era after with these two books filling it in, allowing Great Darkness Saga to still be purchased standalone for those that just want that, because I still think this is a good way to get into Legion, and then you can just get the curse to fill that gap. These two books together could have been an omnibus, but more people might check out Legion and the Great Darkness Saga if it's on its own. How about some other examples? The Flash run by Mark Waid had a section of the series where Mark Waid went to go write for JLA, and Grant Morrison and Mark Millar came to write for Flash. So instead of including the Grant Morrison and Mark Millar issues in the Flash by Mark Waid omnibuses, DC released a deluxe hardcover of just the Morrison Millar issues of Flash. That way you have a companion option, but if you didn't want it, you're not forced to get it. And that is the thing that I think that DC has figured out with deluxe editions. All the examples I showed you here, right, all of these, plus that one, these fill in a collection. They either give you a standalone story that's worthy on being on its own, so you can have it as an iconic story for the collection, or they are very effective gap fillers in omnibuses where it's too much to throw them in as bonus issues, but not enough to make its own standalone book. So, once again, I say to Marvel, why aren't those Daredevil miniseries put into a deluxe, oversized hardcover to go alongside the omnibuses? This is a effective way of collecting comics. DC has figured out how to go from anthologies to creator-focused to shorter runs to major storylines with companion volumes that fill out gaps. And they're even doing the thing that Marvel used to do. They've gone back to start doing deluxe editions with World's Finest and Poison Ivy, getting deluxe hardcovers of 12 issues each if you want a smaller reading format than a whole omnibus. DC knows what they're doing with the deluxe editions, and I'm happy to see that. And I hope that Marvel can take some notes, because I think that the Marvel oversized hardcover collections could really benefit from some more oversized hardcovers, especially to fill gaps of things that couldn't fit in a book otherwise. So I understand why Marvel gave up on the sequential volume deluxe editions, especially with how short a lot of runs have been lately. And, it's just kind of easier to throw together a 25-issue series into an omnibus. But I don't understand why they've given up on some of these other things. Like I've shown with DC, which all of these books, they're fairly recent, or they're like very, like New Frontier, Under the Red Hood. Those are like consistently in print. So like they keep these books around. DC, I feel like, has a handle on giving options with the deluxe edition format, whereas Marvel, it's like omnibus or nothing at this point, which I don't think is super effective. I think, again, I get with the continuing series, but, there's some of these mini-series that should just come out like this. Kanan was 12 issues. There was a Jedi Knights comic that was only 12 issues. That would be a nice oversized hardcover. Unless they're going to try to do like a Star Wars prequel era omnibus where it's the Jedi Knights and Mace Windu, and you can tell I've been researching Star Wars comics lately. But when it comes to this stuff, I think that, there's still a place to have oversized hardcovers that aren't omnibuses. And I think that there's a way to make the two things work together. And I think that's the way DC's figured it out, where it's like, all right, here's a short run that goes with this other run. Here's a book to go between these other two books. I think it's super effective. I think it's awesome. I think Marvel's even doing it with House of X and X of Swords with the Krakoa Omnis. House of X starts it. You have 2 Krakoa anthology volumes. Then you have X of Swords. Then you have 2 Krakoa anthology volumes. That works pretty well. That way, if people just want the events, they can just buy the events. I think there's ways to work this. I hope Marvel takes some notes, because I think that they're not using this format effectively to fill out the gaps in the collection. So that does it for this video, just kind of a rumination on the deluxe edition hardcover because I was thinking about it. And I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any thoughts, leave them in the comments section down below. Be sure to hit subscribe to the notification bell and the like button while you're down there if you haven't already. Really appreciate that for the channel. If you'd like to get into the conversation, you can join our Discord server in the link below. You can also join as a channel member, and there's perks available like early access to videos as well as special shoutouts. Let's give some special shoutouts to some of our channel members. Special shout out to all of our channel members, including these Captain Tier members: Spin-54, Forever1000, Master Ben95, Super Shaddix Boom, Veloquence, Mr. Smelly Potato, Alt Mode Archive, Alice James, Taran Thomas, Guapo-san, Big Ray Daigo, and Ghost Spider. Thank you all for your support of this channel, viewers and channel members alike. If you so wish, I'm on social media on Blue Sky and Letterboxd at Soundout12. You can find my wonderful graphic designer on social media and Discord at DarkClaw643. You can find HeroClub at HeroesClub.com for comic reviews and more. Until next time, this is Soundout saying, let's see what happens with these formats, because I feel like there's a lot more potential going on here.